Today we're talking haunted houses. Has anyone watching this ever lived in a haunted house? Tell me your stories down below. I'm your host James, and these are the top 10 haunted houses that were abandoned overnight. And we're starting off this list with 300 Kim Ma Street in Hanoi, Vietnam. This compound has sat abandoned for over 30 years, and it's said to be one of the most haunted houses in the entire city. There are all kinds of tales surrounding the place. People have claimed to see objects move on their own, semi-translucent or shadowy figures have been seen lurking about, and in the dead of night, ghostly screams are often heard from within the walls. This picture here has made the rounds for a while. As you can see, there's a man standing in front of the gate of the property, and in the background, you can clearly see what looks to be a ghostly figure in a white robe lurking behind him. Now, is this actually just a person who is very much alive, roaming through the abandoned property in a long white robe? At night, possibly, but there could also be a ghost afoot. Number 9, the Yeongdeok House in South Korea. If you ever find yourself in South Korea and feel like taking a spooky trip, you can visit this abandoned house. It's about a 3-hour high-speed train ride from Seoul, but you just might meet a ghost or 10, so maybe it's worth it for you. Plus, apparently you can just roam around for free. The Yeongdeok House is the final resting place of hundreds of soldiers. Around 700 of them died on this land during the Korean War, and of course their spirits are still said to haunt the property. As it turns out, the soldiers are all buried there. The home was built on a mass grave. Every owner who lived in the house experienced terrible misfortune. Not only did they encounter these tortured spirits, but they each met untimely deaths. Word got out about how seemingly cursed this home was, and nobody wanted to live there. It was eventually abandoned at some point in the 80s. Next up, we have the Edmonton Haunted House. Now, I'm not clear as to the name of the owner of this house or the exact location, only that it is or was in Edmonton. This is an old story dating back to 1909. The owner would rent the house out, but they had a hard time securing regular tenants, as each person who stayed there would rush out of the home, oftentimes in well under a month. An article at the time is quoted as saying, "From time to time, parties of different nationalities have approached the owner of the house and rented it, sometimes for a year, other times only for a few months. But generally, at the expiration of a few hours, they disappeared, bag and baggage, without even calling up the owner for a refund of the monies paid. The owner and his agent unaware of their departure until the next month's rent was due." Tenants would experience horrific paranormal activity in the home, with one story going that a tenant had locked himself in his room with furniture pressed up against the door, and yet somehow the door opened on its own, and from the dark hallway beyond, he heard a terrible disembodied groaning sound. Another story goes that an Asian businessman had rented out the home with 4 of his workers. They were planning to operate a laundry business from the home. They didn't even make it through the first night and fled from the home in the middle of the night, returning in the morning to collect their belongings. And at number 7, we have the Whaley House. Thomas Whaley began constructing this beautiful San Diego home in 1856, having proclaimed, "My new house, when completed, will be the handsomest, most comfortable and convenient place in town, or within 150 miles of here." It sounds like something Donald Trump would say. "My house is going to be the best place. We're 150 miles, but it's most comfortable. Everyone's gonna love it. It's gonna be the talk of the town." Anyway, for a long time, it actually was. It wasn't just the Whaley family home. It became the focal point of the entire town. There was a theater, a general store. It was the county courthouse. The San Diego County government rented out a portion of the home for its offices and records. There was a lot going on at this place, but the party started to end when the family began experiencing paranormal activity in the home. They would hear heavy footsteps making their way throughout the hallways at night, ghostly moans coming from throughout the house. They believed it was the spirit of a man named James Yankee Jim Robinson, who had been hanged on the property after stealing a boat. Harsh time to live. Steal a boat, you deserve death, sir. Not long after these paranormal experiences began, one of the daughters, Violet, took her own life, and the Whaleys ended up leaving the home, building a new one downtown. Number 6. The Borley Rectory. Built in 1862 in Essex, this home was once known as the most haunted house in England. It served as a residence for the Reverend Henry Dawson Ellis Bull and his family. Reports of strange occurrences, including unexplained footsteps, mysterious lights, eerie sounds, they began being reported around 1900 when 4 of Henry's daughters claimed to have seen a ghostly nun in the yard. And instead of going inside like any rational person would do in that situation, they decided to run over and try to talk with her, but the nun started to vanish the closer they got, apparently. And the rectory gained widespread attention when paranormal investigator Harry Price conducted an investigation there in 1929. At this time, there was a different family living in the home who had also started experiencing paranormal activity, like servant bells ringing even though they had all been disconnected. Price's research led to claims of the Borley nun, a phantom coach, and other ghostly apparitions said to haunt the property. His findings were published in his book, The Most Haunted House in England, further fueling the rectory's haunted reputation. And the stories surrounding the Borley Rectory varied, with tales of tragic events such as a phantom nun and a supposed love affair ending in a unaliving. These stories added to the intrigue and really fed to this belief that this place was just a hotbed of paranormal activity. Number 5. The Figure. This next story was posted to Reddit by user u/Kim Jong Funk. It goes like this. When I was in elementary school, I shared a queen-size bed with my older sister and our family dog, a mutt that looked like a short-haired lassie. We'd sleep on the foot of our bed every night. When I was about 6 years old, I woke up one night around midnight and saw a dark figure standing at the foot of the bed. The figure was entirely in black without any eyes or a face. I tried to wake up my sister, but she rolled over to go back to sleep. And my sister must have accidentally kicked the dog, because the dog woke up and raised her head and started growling at the figure at the foot of the bed. The growling then woke up my sister, and she saw the figure and started screaming. When my parents came into the room and turned the light on, nothing was there. To this day, both my sister and I are adamant that we saw a ghost or other demon on our room. We know we weren't crazy either because the dog saw it too. Next up, we have the Lalaurie Mansion. The Lalaurie Mansion in New Orleans has a notorious history dating back to the mid-1800s. Built by Dr. Louis Lalaurie, who lived there with his wife Delphine in 1832, the mansion's dark secrets became public knowledge around 1834. Reports of cruelty and mistreatment of slaves led to a pretty shocking discovery of a torture chamber in the attic, revealing the gruesome reality of their actions, especially on Delphine's part. She was a full-on sadistic, cruel, evil woman. Reminds me a lot of Elizabeth Bathory, but worse, and some of the things that went on here are unimaginable. She would like break her victims' bones repeatedly, just completely deforming them, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. They were complete monsters. Over the years, the mansion gained a reputation, of course, for being haunted, with claims of ghostly apparitions and eerie occurrences going on there. Local legends and ghost stories have attributed the haunting to the tormented spirits of the victims who suffered within its walls. Next on the list, we have the Sallie House. The Sallie House in Atchison, Kansas now stands completely abandoned due to its rather dark history. Several deaths are known to have taken place in the home, including the home's original owner, Michael Finney, Richard Edwin Finney, William True, Agnes Finney True, and a young girl named Sallie, who had collapsed due to a severe abdominal pain. She was brought to the home by her mother so that the town doctor who lived there could tend to her. He determined that she had appendicitis and that there was no time to delay a surgery. He started the surgery before the anesthesia had fully taken effect, and Sallie woke up on the operating table when she suddenly died, apparently from shock. Her spirit was said to linger within the home, and years later, 1993, a young couple moved in. They claimed that their dog would bark at random empty spots in the home, especially in the upstairs nursery. Soon the man would begin began receiving scratches on his body from an unknown source. The room that was formerly used for operations would become cold at times, and objects would sometimes move on their own. Suffice to say, that couple didn't live there for long, and the home is now used for paranormal investigations, where paranormal occurrences are still reported on to this day. Pomeroy Castle, located in Devon, England. This place has a history dating back to the 15th century. It was originally built by the Pomeroy family, but later came under the ownership of the Seymours, a prominent noble family closely connected to the Tudor royalty. Over the years, the castle witnessed a series of renovations and expansions, but despite its impressive architecture and kind of picturesque setting, I mean, it's a castle. It looks beautiful. Pomeroy Castle has also gained a reputation for being haunted, especially after having been abandoned in the late 17th century. Stories of supernatural occurrences and sightings have been reported on the property. One of the most famous tales involves the White Lady, believed to be the spirit of Margaret Pomeroy, who was allegedly imprisoned by her jealous sister and left to starve to death. Another ghostly figure is said to be the Blue Lady, and this one's really creepy though, because it's the soul of Eleanor Seymour, who reportedly fell to her death from the tower. And the Blue Lady is said to lure unsuspecting men to dangerous parts of the castle, especially the tower, where they'll fall to their death. Some claim to hear unexplained sounds and experience other strange phenomena. Tourists and visitors have reported feelings of unease and the sensation of being watched while exploring the ruins. And finally, we have the Amityville Horror House. Everyone has heard that name before. There have been tons of horror movies and books based on the goings-on in this house, and the tales surrounding it have become pretty famous in American folklore. For starters, 23-year-old Ron DeFeo Jr. had taken the lives of both his parents and his 4 siblings in the home as they slept. In 1975, the Lutz family purchased the home, but after just 28 days, they left, claiming to have experienced a string of paranormal occurrences. They said to have seen ooze sliding down their walls. There was a strange odor in the home, probably from the ooze. They'd hear doors slam on their own, as well as other objects moving, and they encountered swarms of flies right in the middle of winter. Even if there was no demonic spirit involved, yeah, I'd be out of that house with all that gross crap going on too. With all that said, I've been your host, James, and I'll catch you, yes, you specifically, in the next video.